What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be finding out if this Super 7 Battle Beast can measure up to other Invincible lines that are currently releasing out there in the market. Now, this is the first release from the Super 7 Invincible 7-inch figure line, and this is based on the Invincible comic books, and this Battle Beast specifically is an exclusive to GameStop, and he is from the Invincible Universe Battle Beast comic. So that is actually even a spin-off for this specific character from the original Invincible comics. Really cool character. I am not a fan of the comics just because I haven't had a chance to read them. I actually got pulled into the Invincible Universe from the Amazon show, so I know Battle Beast from the Amazon show, but here on the back of this blister we have some really great comic panels showing him from this battle where he travels to a foreign planet and runs into this large alien where he decides to fight him right there on the spot, and he gets green blood splattered all over him. So that is what this GameStop exclusive is actually from. This is the Battle Beast with the Blood of MCU variation. So we have the Ultimates version, which released at San Diego Comic-Con, which came with more accessories and alternate hands and head sculpts. But this is a Super 7 Deluxe release, which is their sort of more bare bones releases. It's the same figure for the most part as the Ultimates line, just less accessories and stuff like that to make it a more affordable purchase. But I am liking this blister pack a lot. I love the green blood splattered across the plastic. The green blood that you can see splattered all over the figure is looking good from the package here. So I actually really enjoy this blister. The comic book artwork from Invincible is just really killer stuff. So I'm actually kind of bummed that this is in an old school style blister and we're gonna have to crack this open and, you know, tear this thing apart, because it would have been nice to be able to keep him in this cool looking blister pack. But let's go ahead and jump into this, guys, because we are going to be doing an in-depth review where we're going to take a closer look at the aesthetic and the paint and the sculpt. We'll then do an articulation test just to see how Super 7 has improved with this line of figures. I can tell already based on some of my other Ultimates figures from Super 7 that this is an improved body as far as the joints go, and then we will give you final thoughts to wrap up at the end. But yeah, let's go ahead and keep moving forward and cut this guy out of this really cool blister pack. And again, I really wish this was more of a collector's style blister pack, so we wouldn't have to cut this thing up and ruin this really awesome artwork that they included here. A really nice cardboard here on this blister and everything like that, so kind of a shame to have to basically ruin it to open this figure, but let's go ahead and get into it. I haven't opened a blister like this in a long time. It's actually pretty satisfying. Reminds me of old school action figure collecting. But yeah, you can see here he's pretty bare bones. As I said, this is a kind of dumbed down version of their Ultimates figure, so he only comes with one accessory, no alternate hands, no alternate head sculpt or anything like that. But just from out of the package here, I'm really liking the paint application of the green blood splatter. That's looking good. The sculpt and the detail in his armor is looking really nice. So yeah, let's keep going and take him out of this thing completely. And here we go, we have him out of the package so we can get a better look at this figure, and he is a large, hefty figure. He is a 7-inch scale, so he is not going to match with your 1/12 scale stuff, but since Battle Beast is a larger character, I think it still could potentially work. We'll do a size comparison with some other 1/12 scale Invincible figures that I currently have on hand, but it's looking nice. Like I said, I love this green splatter effect. He's covered in it head to toe, front and back. You can see just tons of green blood splatter all over him, all over his head, his chest, his legs. So just completely covered in green blood splatter. That looks really good. As far as sculpt goes, I am really enjoying the body sculpt of this guy. He's big, he's bulky, he's beefy. You can see some details in his musculature. I'm really liking his comic book style armor. You have all the different flaps and details in the belt. This is a softer plastic here, which can move and get out of the way. Really liking his gloves and all the folds in his clothing. So yeah, the sculpt on this, I'm really digging. I'm liking that a lot. Now, we have to talk about this head sculpt because originally, seeing it online, I was not a big fan of this head sculpt. I will say it is slightly better in person. There's a little more detail, but it just has no shading or paint on it, which really kind of washes everything out because it is so white. Now, because I have my sort of dramatic lighting setup here, it's going to give some of those folds and details a little more of a in-depth look. But once you have this thing in brighter lighting, I can see why it looks kind of flat. So that is unfortunate, and it's just not truly a good representation of the comic book Battle Beast, if you ask me. Like, the comic book Battle Beast just has such a really cool, dramatic, angular, sort of badass look to it. Lots of details. It's kind of hard to see here, but I just don't really feel like they've captured that in this head sculpt that they gave us for this Battle Beast. But, the detail in his braids and his hair is done well, but there's just really no shading on this. A nice wash, I think, would help those details really pop. But the rest of him, as far as the body goes, I actually really like. He looks good. He has a nice stature. He's hefty. The plastic feels nice and solid. The quality of the plastic I actually enjoy. It's looking really good. I like that. Let's check out the one accessory that the deluxe version comes with. And I will say this figure was $29.99, exclusive from GameStop. So, pretty big, hefty figure with lots of paint applications and a good sculpt for $29.99. I will have to say, I think that's a pretty good value. He comes here with his broken sword, which I like the metallic of the silver. The paint on the hilt of this sword is just very plain. There's like no shading or wash to this. A wash would just help this thing really come to life with all the little details and the like line paneling and the handle of the sword here. So cool looking sculpt for this, but the paint is just really oversimplified. This really needed a little bit of wash or something to help bring this accessory to life, but we'll see how that fits in his hand here in just a second. But before we do that, I did want to take some time here to test his articulation. Now, this is going to be a very important segment of this review for me because I do have other Super 7 Ultimates. I have some of their turtles and other figures, and the articulation is really where the Ultimate 7-inch figures seem to fall off. Like, I enjoy the sculpt of the Ultimates that I have and the accessories they come with, but they just do not move well at all. I am seeing that I believe this is an updated articulation system. We have double jointed elbows here. We have these double jointed knees, which hopefully will help this guy move a little better. I will say right out of the box, like, just barely handling this guy, he has a boot cut swivel here, and that thing is really loose, like super loose. I don't know if you can tell on camera, so don't like that, but that could be fixed. But let's go ahead and do a full articulation test on this figure, starting with his head. His head does get a tiny little bit of look down and just a tiny bit of looking up because of the sculpt. Of course, you have left and right, can move around that way. He doesn't have any head tilt at all. This is just a standard like neck to a ball peg in the head, so we have no additional articulation at the base of the neck, which would probably help this figure quite a bit. Let's test his shoulders. He has these big beefy shoulders with big beefy joints, and those move pretty well, and he can get to just shy of 90. He's pretty much there. We'll give him 90 because of how bulky of a character he is, but those move pretty well. I like to see that. Of course, we're going to get 360 rotation from that ball joint there. And then we also have a upper bicep swivel that moves well, as you can see there. He has these double jointed elbows, which move a lot better than some of the turtles that I have, which do not use this style of a joint. So this does move smoother than the turtles that I have, but doesn't get a ton of range, even though it's a double jointed elbow. Because of his sculpt and everything, he's getting maybe just slightly past 90 there, but I like the way it moves. He has a hinge at the wrist on a peg, which you can spin that around and get actually a pretty good amount of movement from the hinge of the wrist there. So there you go, that's his arm setup. Now he does not have any butterflies, unfortunately. That would be a great addition to these characters. So as you can see, he is not getting any arms in front of him whatsoever. That's where that is going to max out using the shoulder joints. So that is unfortunate. Would love to see some butterflies implemented on these figures. Let's test his ab articulation. He does have a nice hidden diaphragm cut here underneath the armor, right there at the ribs of the figure. So that is going to get a little bit of movement. I don't know if you can see that there. You can kind of see where the paint stops. So, it gets a little bit of range there. Not bad, honestly, for the top of the diaphragm. And then, of course, he has a lower cut here, which is also going to give you just a tiny bit more of articulation. Really not a lot of movement there from those diaphragm cuts. So when we're utilizing both, that's his crunch forward there, which is fairly limited. And his crunch back is a little bit better, actually, not terrible for his range going backwards. But I think because of the sculpt of his armor here, that's going to limit him going forward. But he does have a little bit of articulation there. His legs, the soft piece does get out of the way a bit. No drop down hips. And that's going to be about max for his kicking range. I would say just shy of 90, not quite to 90 degrees. He has a thigh swivel from the peg there, so he doesn't have a full thigh cut that'll allow you to move it all the way around. But you do get a decent amount of thigh swivel from that joint in there. That's pretty nice. Now these double jointed knees move well. I'm liking the way these move, much better than their other style joint system, and a decent amount of range there, a good amount past 90, as you can see. For a big bulky figure like this, that is not terrible. I will say though, something about these joints, I don't know if you can see that there, but this is really loose. The connection of that double joint at these two segments here is a little wobbly, a little loose. Don't like that. Let's see, as far as kicking outwards, if we can get that thing to move out of the way, he can almost get to a full split. Pretty close. I could probably push it a little bit more and get him to a full split, but not quite. Almost to a full split, but pretty decent. A lot better than some of the turtles that I have. And see, again, this loose knee, it doesn't want to stay. This one more so than this one, maybe just because I haven't been articulating this one. But this boot and this knee are pretty loose. Frontwards, forward and backward split, not quite, but a decent amount. So you can get him into a nice run pose there with the range on that knee. So you can see there. So he does have swivel at the abdomen. I can get all the way around. And then he has, like I said, the boot cut swivel, which this one is super loose, but it is included there. And then he has his foot articulation, which is going to get that far down and a little bit up there, and no toe articulation, unfortunately. But all said and done, it's still pretty lacking in the range and the quality. Like I said, like this leg, I don't know if you can be able to tell, but it's like very loose. These knees feel really loose. These boot cuts feel pretty loose. So not where I would like it to be for articulation. A lot left to be desired, to be honest, but at the same time, better than a lot of the other Ultimates figures that I do own. But still not, I would say, up to par with other figure lines in this price range. Not as dynamic of a pose that you would want to see out of Battle Beast, you know, a comic and an animated action hero who should be able to kind of move and fight and pose in every which way. Now, again, back to his accessory, we have this here. Let's see how easy that is to put into his hands, which are a slightly softer plastic. Nicely, but there we go. So that fits into his hand really nicely. It's not loose, fits really well. Even though these are a bit of a harder plastic, you can still squeeze it to get it into there. So there he is with his broken sword accessory. The Ultimates version that was the con exclusive came with a bunch of different weapons and swords and hammer and mace and stuff, which I think would be really cool to have with this figure with these grasping hands here. But there you go. That is the look for Battle Beast. And we'll do a side-by-side comparison to see how this larger scale Battle Beast sizes up to other 1/12 scale Invincible figures. So here is the Super 7 Battle Beast next to the Zoom Rig My Alien Dad Omni-Man, who is a 1/12 scale action figure, and you can see the size difference is vast. Now, Battle Beast is supposed to be a larger, bigger, bulkier character, so this probably could work. I think he's maybe a little bigger than he should be, but I think you could play with that and make it work. And also, here he is next to the Jada Toys Invincible, who is also a 1/12 scale figure, and you can see here the size difference is really big. He's way bigger, way bulkier, way wider than both of these characters, maybe a little larger than he should be in scale, but you know, pretty dang close, honestly. Like, I think you can get away with this. I think the 7-inch Battle Beast could actually work with these two figures in your collection. So it'll be interesting to see how Super 7 handles the other characters in this 7-inch line. They do have Thrag and Invincible and Angstrom Levy and Alan the Alien all coming out here very soon. We will be doing reviews of those figures once they release here in the States. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle their scaling within the 7-inch scale of their Invincible line, because they might be close to this 1/12 scale if this is how big the Battle Beast in their 7-inch scale is. So it'll be interesting to see how the other figures turn out from the Invincible line from Super 7, and moving forward, hopefully we see them continue to do better and better. All right, so I've spent a little bit of time posing this guy, playing with this figure, and I'm going to wrap it up with my takeaways and final thoughts on the Super 7 7-inch Battle Beast figure. Now, this is the first one from their Invincible line, so I really wanted to pick this one up to get an idea of what we can expect for the rest of the Invincible figures they have coming up here. Fairly shortly, we should have 4 brand new figures, and I believe they will continue with this Invincible line, so I wanted to get an idea of what we were looking at here. Now, there are some positives. We will start there. I do like the aesthetic of this figure, especially in the body with the armor, with the details in his sculpt, in like the boots and the belt and the gloves. I love the blood splatter effect. I think they did a really great job with the paint job for this blood splatter effect that is just covering him from head to toe. So his body and his heft and the size of this Battle Beast is something that I really like about this figure. Some things that I think could use some improvement are definitely the head sculpt. Aesthetically, I think the head sculpt is lacking a bit, especially because this is the comic iteration of this Battle Beast character, where the sculpt is like angular and sharp and menacing. I just don't think they really nailed that for the look of the sculpt in the Battle Beast head here. I would have liked to seen that fleshed out a little more and look closer to the comic book art. So aesthetically, I don't love the head sculpts. The accessory is pretty cool, but just would have loved to see some paint to bring out some of the details in that sculpt. Would have liked to see some additional shading in the body, in the muscles, to help bring out the sculpt as well, because even though there's a ton of blood splatter on this guy and there's a lot of detail in the sculpt, he really has no shading to just really help that sculpt pop. Now, articulation and quality is, I think, where this figure is going to suffer the most. After playing with him and posing him for just a few minutes, and as I mentioned earlier in the articulation test, like the knees of this figure, are very, very loose. Now both of them are, just from posing it a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there. Like, to the point of where I thought it was broken for a second. Like, these joints here and where they attach, it's almost like a gummy feel, but it's just because they are so loose that they kind of move involuntarily all over the place, which in turn actually even makes it harder for him to stand up and balance, because those knees start to give way under the weight of the figure. So that is unfortunate. The articulation in the upper half of his body, I think, is decent for a Super 7. Now, if you're comparing it to other competitors in like the $30 realm of action figures, especially companies that are doing the Invincible license as well, it's rather lacking. Like, I wish it had butterfly joints. I wish it had more range in the abdomen, but it is nice to see it have some movement there, and I think it needs a lot of work and more articulation from the bottom of the neck. So figures like the upcoming Invincible and Thrag, I hope we see a little more articulation throughout those figures to help with like their flying poses and things of that nature. We'll have to wait and see. Again, these characters are comic books, they're superhero type characters, they're dynamic, and you want them to move and pose and be able to hit a lot of those dynamic looks from the comic book, and unfortunately his limitations are going to make that extremely difficult again. So I really am enjoying the aesthetic more than I thought I would, but his overall articulation and feel within the joints and other things, I'm just really not enjoying, to the point of where I almost wish I would have kept him in that really cool blister pack. Like, at this point, from this figure, I would almost say that these are like an in-box collector item. They do have some improvements from other Super 7 articulation setups that I've used and tested in the past, but it still needs a lot of work, and hopefully we can see Super 7 continue to improve and hopefully evolve as they release more of these Invincible figures. But we know that Wave 1 was leaked and might be right around the corner. Like, people are already getting them overseas out on the shelf. So if those figures that we have for Wave 1 are going to be as limited as this one, I will say that that will be kind of worrisome, especially because they are really big, important characters that you want to move and feel better than this Battle Beast. So yeah, that's going to wrap it up for my review of the Super 7 GameStop Blood Splatter exclusive Battle Beast. Thank you guys for spending some time with me here today. If you like in-depth reviews like this of action figures, I really focus on the fighting game space and fighting game properties, but we're branching out to all sorts of other figures that I enjoy to collect, like the Invincible line. Feel free to subscribe. Leave a comment down below if this review helped you decide if you will be picking up these Super 7 Invincible figures, or if you maybe might not be picking these Super 7 Invincible figures up. And leave a like on this video if you've made it this far. That really helps push this out to a new audience. But again, thank you guys for spending some time with me here today, and I will catch you in the next one.